Hi, everyone. Barry McGuire here for Barry McGuire's Creative Real Estate Education Series. Creative real estate, that's what we talk about every Monday at 5 p.m. Mountain. And by creative real estate, we mean things other than buy and hold real estate. Buy and hold is the classic way to purchase real estate. But with that, you can either buy it or you can't. With creative real estate, there's lots of other options, lots of other ways to buy real estate in different ways, often with little or no money down. So that's why it's interesting to lots of folks. And on the program, we have lots of people on. We have experts in finance, insurance, tax, foreclosure, development. Experts come on and we talk about things they know about that can help us with our creative investing careers and portfolios. So that's how we try and contribute to the creative real estate education across the country. As well, my wife Donna and I have and put on various what we call focus workshops. We do 2 or 3 of those a year, and thank God we can now do them live now that COVID lets us do them live. I was going to say COVID is over. It's not over, but I guess we're coping with it, and we can now do live events, which we love to do. And we've got a couple coming up, March 18th in Alberta. In Calgary, we're doing a wholesaling focus workshop. This will be a full day wholesaling workshop that will look at wholesaling across the country, because wholesaling is a cross-Canada strategy, well known in all the provinces. So that is March 18th in Calgary at the Hotel Clique. It's a great hotel. They treat us really well. We're going to provide you folks with full breakfasts and full lunches, lots of networking, and all the expert advice and help you could possibly want all around wholesaling. So that's the wholesaling. And then I'm very excited to say we're going to be back in Ontario for the first time in about 3.5 years, I think it is. And we are going to do a full day focus workshop on, are you ready? Agreements for sale. Agreements for sale, that's a seller financing strategy. And it's a great strategy in a market where things have kind of shuffled a bit, a market in fluctuation. That's certainly what's going on in Ontario right now. So those are coming up March 18th in Calgary, wholesaling, and April 1st in Toronto on agreements for sale. Now today, I am delighted to have Sandro Ferreira joining me. Hello, Sandro.
Barry, what an honor for me to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about this conversation.
Well, Sandro, I'm glad you are here. Sandro, folks, I just want to tell you, was at one of our focus workshops, came with some other people from Ontario. They looked pretty edgy for the first, half a day, and then they kept getting edgier and edgier. Finally, somebody said, "What the hell's going on with you guys from Ontario? Why are you looking around like the other shoe is going to fall here?" And they're going, "Well, we're waiting for the upsell. When do we have to run to the back of the room and bang our credit card and sign up for your program that will cost us thousands and thousands?" I said, "Sandro, Eve, that's not what we're doing. We're educators. We're just teaching. We're not doing that other stuff." Then Sandro and his crew all calmed down. And I have to say, Sandro, your table was a big contributor at that event with great questions. I thought you did really well.
Thank you. It's interesting because I had connected. So I connected someone from Edmonton, and it's a lady that she's doing a lot of deals. Basically, all the deals that she does is through agreement for sale. And then I connected with the people in my community in Ontario, asking about the agreement for sale, and I got a lot of information, but nothing more tactical. So that's when I started doing some research. I said, well, if I want to learn this properly, I gotta learn from the best, and that's when I decided to fly to Edmonton, and I'm glad I did. I am so glad I did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm glad you came too, and I mean, I think you went away, and the folks that came with you went away, um, agreeing that it was a really good course, lots of information, great value for money, and I mean, I think that's what you took away with you, along with those heavy manuals and other things that we provide. So that, I mean, that's what we try and do, is make sure that everybody says, "Man, that was great," and should have, we could have been longer. I mean, we
Yeah.
have those events, and then we at the end, when the formal part is done, then we sit and answer questions. How long did we stay? I mean, we were done the formal part about 5 o'clock.
Yeah, so then we
Was
ended
it
up going to the
another?
restaurant, and we stayed at the restaurant,
We stayed
still
at the
asking
restaurant after.
questions.
I
And then
forgot
I
about
remember going back to my hotel room. It was like 11:30, and people are still there. And it wasn't drinking; it was people like literally engaging and asking the questions,
Yes,
and you guys answering. Oh my goodness, it was a great experience.
it was.
And
There's just so much to talk about, and so now before we get started on today's topic, which is really agreements for sale in Ontario, which I'm very excited to talk to you about. I always think it's important for people to hear your backstory, who you are, you know, where you grew up, how it is that you came to Canada. What kind of opportunities do you see here? I mean, how does it appear to you as a new Canadian coming here?
yes,
And
yeah,
so I want to hear details about who Sandro is and your backstory.
yes.
So
Oh wow, I'm
tell us.
glad. So thank you very much. Yeah, so I'm originally from Brazil, so born and raised in Brazil, and I back in Brazil I went to law school, and it's funny because I went to law school for two reasons. One, I hated math, so when I was looking for a course, I wanted to make sure that I would find something that I had zero math, and law school was one of them. And the second reason, so in Brazil, lawyers, they are called doctors.
Right.
So for me, it was like, okay, so now my mom, she can go around and telling her friends that her son is a doctor, right? So the wrong motivation. This is definitely the wrong motivation. But I've been through law school and really opened my eyes to understand the nuances and the gray areas and what is possible and what is not possible from the perspective of the law. But fresh out of school, and then I was faced with the marketplace. It was a sad reality to realize that in places like Brazil, so some other places, I'm not going to talk specifically about the Brazil, but some places, it's all about the money. If you have money, then you have the law in your hands, right? And that for me was shocking. And that's when I realized that that wasn't the country that, like, I was born there, so I didn't have a choice. But Canada was that land of opportunity that I saw on the TV, and Canadians always appeared super happy and la façon de vivre, like in
Right.
Quebec. I was immigrated through Quebec, and I
Sure.
had to learn a little bit of French. But fast forward, 2010 is when I landed in Canada, and again I got here. I had basic French, and I had zero English
Wow.
because I qualified. So because of my degree, so I had 2 degrees and I had a lot of work experience. So on the system, the immigration at the time was like a system, a point system,
Right.
right? So then because of career, age, professional experience, then the language was like not no English needed and basic French. It's literally that's how I immigrated. But I got here and they said, well, now life is on, the game is on. And I couldn't go into sales. I couldn't get into sales. I couldn't go back to school to do the equivalence of my diplomas in law and business. Also to take another 6 years of my life. And a friend of mine, he was working for a Bell doing satellite installations, which is there for you guys is like Telus and Shaw.
Sure.
And that's what I did. So, okay, I need to make money. I'm going to find a way. And then I had to self teach myself French and I had to self teach myself English as well. So I did. And I realized that a lot of times I would go to people's houses to do installations in those beautiful, massive houses, and I would ask them, "So, what do you do for a living?" "Oh, I'm a tradesman."
Oh,
And that was like impressive because electricians and plumbers and like construction workers, carpenters live in these beautiful, massive houses. And that was when I realized that in Brazil, those so called survival jobs, people don't really get paid a lot. But
no.
here, the trades are like, oh my goodness, they can make money. And then I met an individual that he literally was tricking the system. He would buy a house, live there for 2 years, move out, build another one, and just cashing out and technically tax free. It's like, how do you do this? It's like, well, I'm going to give you a book. And he gave me the Rich Dad Poor Dad book from Robert
Oh,
Kiyosaki.
yep.
And that, oh my goodness. So I can literally get rich here through that. It's like, yeah, that's how you do it. That's how the wealthy do. And then I went and I bought my first condo. So 2012, bought the first condo. I didn't know anything. I didn't know what I didn't know, right? Bought a first condo. An opportunity came along. I met my wife at the time, learning English, bought a second condo, then bought a semi-detached house. And then the banks, they told me, get out of here. Your TDS and GDS and your debt ratio is way too high and no more money for you. No. Well, I kept on knocking, and the doors, they couldn't open. So then in 2018, I put a group of friends together, and then we decided to buy a house near to a college. We bought the house to rent the house for students.
Right.
2018 was like around September. We renovated the house. 2019, we're like flying colors, and then pandemic happened. When pandemic happened in my career, at that point I was already working on sales, working for the largest HVAC company in the country, selling HVACs, furnaces and air conditioner, making a lot of money for somebody who just got in Canada 10
Yeah.
years prior with $4,000 in the pocket. And now I'm here making, like 6 figures income in sales was a huge
Yeah.
accomplishment.
It
But
is.
I'm very ambitious. So a lot of people like, Sandro, you make almost what a doctor makes. You should be happy and be content. I said, but why though? Like, why? This is a country of opportunities. And what I realized, so pandemic happened, I decided to go after mentoring. That's when I met Alfonso Quadra, and man, everything changed. Like the game really changed for me. Now, what I love about real estate is that it doesn't matter the color of my skin, where I came from, if I even can speak English properly, or if I have an accent or not, as long as I understand that 2 plus 2 can be 4, but can be 22, and why not, right? There's a lot of opportunities.
Yeah.
Anyone can have their lives transformed. And that's when, already in the game, already learning. At that point, I was with our genius and coaching with Alfonso's community. And when I heard about your programs, like, okay, now I need to, because the market is already shifting, and I need to find a way to separate myself from the pack, right? And bring value to the table. So flying to Edmonton, for me, that was like, oh my goodness, even though we had to make an investment, but the return, I was already thinking about the return of the investment that I would make. And so I went there in September. In October, we did the deal. I mean, I 100x the investment that I made because I was able to do not just one, but two very creative deals. And I just closed on Friday another one using the same strategy, right?
Right.
And it's literally seeing the opportunity and putting ourselves in a position of a student and knowing that we don't know everything. There are people there that are already walking the walk and doing the talk. So talking the talk and walking the walk. It's like, oh, I can just learn from them and emulate what they're doing so I can succeed. And boom, that's what we're doing, Barry.
Well, Sandro, that's such a good story, and I wanted to give you time to tell that story because I mean, I'm a Canadian guy. I'm born here. Folks are showing up from other countries, but you don't really know how it is for them or how they're looking at it. And so, as you were giving that background, I mean, I hear a couple of things out of it. One is there's opportunity in Canada.
Oh my goodness.
Lots of opportunity. And
Lots of
from being at one
opportunities.
of our courses, one of the things that we say is if you understand the strategy, you will recognize the opportunities. So, Canada as a whole has lots of opportunities, but what we're talking about in our focus workshops is to try and say to people, this is how it works. And if you know how it works, when the opportunity passes you by on the street, you'll grab it because now you understand. So that's one thing I heard. The second thing I heard is education.
Yes.
So you learned, you went to school, you got lots of education. You came here, you determined that it was probably not a good use of your time to spend 6 more years, getting equivalent degrees here. But now you are a student by observing, and you're seeing, and you see the tradesman, and you go, you know what? If an electrician and a plumber can do this, and then you start finding things like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which has helped tremendous number of people over the years. Robert Kiyosaki's ideas have been very, very helpful for people. And then you meet Alfonso, another step up. And then, you take and you apply those things, and then you hear about Donna and I and the courses we're teaching. And so education really is the key to so many things. And we are all lifelong learners, aren't we? We're never finished learning, but it's important for people to hear your background and how education has played into this to get you to the point where you finished the course in Edmonton, you went back to Ontario, and you did not one but 2 deals. And I want to talk about those, and then if you're okay, we can talk about the third one that you just mentioned.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
let's talk a bit about that. So you finished the course in Edmonton, you fly back.
I flew back. So it's interesting that I'm a relational individual, right?
Yes.
One thing that I noticed, and it's a big difference between how things are in the marketplace in Brazil, for example, and how things are in the marketplace in North America, especially in the English side. Because Quebec is very similar to Brazil, but the English side is very transactional, right? A lot of people say, okay, I don't want to know about your grammar. Like, let's talk about the deal. And people are, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I realized that putting myself in a position where I have the opportunity to be relational before being transactional, I have the opportunity to engage with people and then get to know and be likable. Because if the seller or the agent, whoever is involved in the transaction, they like you and they resonate with your values, they will help you, right? So that being said, I like, for me, and being with Alfonso and Well Genius, and I became a coach in like a record time. And it's not because things were easy; it's because I was willing to do the work, right, and take action. But always with the lens of a relational individual. So getting to know, connecting with agents, connecting with brokers, connecting with other investors. And I literally start telling everybody, so Sandro, what are you doing? Still selling furnaces? Yeah, that's my side gig now. What do you mean? I'm a real estate investor now. If you know anybody that is either selling or thinking about sell or they need help, talk to me. I didn't necessarily know the answer, but I knew who to ask. And it's the power of leverage, right? Leveraging other people's time, money, credit, network, knowledge, deals, and why not? So I flew back, and I was already building a relationship with an agent that sold me a 20-unit apartment building in Ottawa. And the transaction had so many roadblocks and speed bumps. But when the roadblocks they come in my way, I see them as a stepstones. Um, and I called him, said, listen, I just went to Edmonton and I learned this phenomenal strategy. And if I have anybody that is selling a project, I want to buy. But again, for me, my primary strategy was like multifamilies, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I actually have a deal in Ottawa, and it's a sought after neighborhood in Ottawa, the Glebe. And it's like,
Yes.
I have a triplex for sale. Okay, can we have send me the information? He sent me the information, and then, of course, doing the discovery call. Why he's selling? What is wrong? Or what's going to do with the money? And at that point, I already had the relationship with the agent. It's like, well, the guy's a contractor. He bought the property when the market was, going up. They spend a lot of money, and now he needs to sell. But the offers that he's getting is like he can't sell. It's like, oh, but we can do one thing. So they asked me if I could help them talk to my friends and family to raise the capital to do the down payment. And as I'm looking to the structure of the deal and the challenges that the seller was going through, immediately that whole weekend that I spent with you guys was like screaming in my mind. And then I told them, say, guys, I think we can pull this off without any investors and without the bank. We can do the agreement for sale. And keep in mind that I'm talking to one of the top agents in Ottawa, very well connected individual. And it's like, well, I heard about this deal, but I don't think this was used to, like, people were used to do this in the 70s. It's like, well, a lot of people are doing now, and I think we can pull this off. And that's how the conversation started. So we went for lunch, and I wrote in a napkin, we can do this way, and then, because the seller, his mortgage was 1.3 million. He wanted 2.5 million. And then I did the math quickly. Said, well, how much you guys as an agent? Like, oh, that's 5%. I did the math. They said, okay, here is my proposal. We take over his mortgage through agreement for sale. Then we can put a second mortgage on it. So then he gets some money out and you guys get paid. And then there's a line of credit already. We take over the payments of the line of credit. And then we're going to have an unpaid amount that you just leave as unpaid equity. So then when the mortgage comes to completion, or the agreement comes to completion, we will remortgage and then he will pay it out. It's like, oh, you are pushing. I don't know if the guy's going to say yes. It's like, well, here's the thing. He needs to sell. Nobody's putting on offers. And by the way, people that are coming forward with offers, they are presenting offers at 1.6, 1.65 because of the interest rates hike. Now, his mortgage, 4 years left at 3.3. And now we're talking about high 6.
Yeah.
So, of course, the numbers to make sense would have to be in the 1.6. But doing the math with the cash flow that the property is producing, it made sense. So, say, well, we're going to have a conversation with the seller. We'll get back to you. Then they come back, say, well, the guy has a lot of questions, and his lawyer is killing the deal. It's like, well, we got to get the lawyers that understand the strategy. So that's when I circled back to you guys. And I remember talking to Donna and talking to Mrs. Walkerton. I always forget how to say it.
Andrea
Walkerton.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, Sandro, like we have actually some lawyers in your town that they understand this strategy. And then Donna connected me with Babette. It's like, because I had done, but it was funny because I everything that I wrote down was following the Alberta way of doing things.
Yeah.
I was like, no, Sandro, that's not how you do it. You have to structure and have 3 different contracts. So she really helped us to break down. Mm-hmm. And right there, just because I already had the material that you guys shared with me, said, well, that's going to cost you around 10 to 15,000 to do all of that. It's like, no, I have the templates. I got the templates. And they said, oh, well, if you have the templates, that's 80% of the work. And that was able to save right there $10,000. So we wrote everything down. Now it's time to send to the seller. And the seller realized that all the liability on paper, they were his liabilities because he was the one with the second mortgage and the line of credit and the first mortgage. But it's literally putting ourselves in a position to understand the needs of the seller and understand and make them understand that I'm actually helping you because now we have a problem and you're going to create a win-win scenario for all of us. Why not? Now, like that was amazing because it's like, yeah, no, it makes sense. Babette introduced us to another lawyer that was able to work with the seller, and then we were able to do the deal. But the greatest thing is that the property was like triplex, with a non-conforming, unfinished fourth unit in the basement. And then Bill 23 came in effect in Ontario, that the government has a plan to build 1.5 million homes, and these are changing zonings. So now the property, we are finishing the basement unit, and now it's actually legal for Plex. Guess what? The property that we paid 2.5 through like zero money down, no investors, 100% sellers financing, now is already in today's market being, its value is 3.2. So right there, we're making all this equity, and you can flip this property much faster, pay all this debt that the seller has. He's happy because he walked to 200,000. I am happy because I got paid. I got paid, and also building the relationships with the agent and his team and creating the power team. And then once we had the deal complete and done, the agent said, well, I have another project that is under construction, and I think we should have a conversation with the seller as well. Had the conversation with the seller.
Okay. Hold on there, Sandro. That is such a good story. I just want to go over a few of the points before we get on to the agent who's probably saying to himself, oh my God, who is this guy and how does he figure? Because you said he's a top agent in Ottawa.
Yes.
So,
yes.
You know, I mean, this is the kind of guy you definitely want on your side, and you want him to, to believe in you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a few things coming out of what you're talking about. The relational versus the transactional. That we are much more on the transactional side in English Canada, but from being at our course that we say and preach and truly believe that the relational aspect of any transaction is a very, very important part.
Yeah.
When you're coming up with something that people don't understand or they haven't heard of before, and you're asking them to listen to you and to maybe not take a leap of faith, but at least not throw you out the door before they've heard what you have to say. It's so much easier if, as you pointed out, they like you.
Yes.
It's so much easier. So I want everybody to who's listening to understand how important that part of it is. But let's get on to some of the numbers. So we've got a property that he wanted. Did you say he wanted 2.5?
Yes, 2.5.
2.5. He's got a mortgage of 1.2. So we've got
1.3.
1.3.
Yes.
So he's got a gap of 1.2 million.
Yes.
So that's a big gap to fill. Now he's getting offers of how much did you say?
1.6.
1.6. Oh my God.
So he would be out of money, right? He would have to pay to accept an offer like that.
So it's the wolves are circling the wounded animal here, trying to buy this property for nothing. Yeah. So here it is. He's in trouble, and the wolves are offering him 1.6, 1.65, something like that on a property that he wants 2.5 for. So obviously he needs help. He has a problem. And so the other thing that we always talk about is that along with building a relationship and trusting, you need to solve people's problems. So 2.5 value, 1 pre-mortgage. The other components were a line of credit of how much?
So now with the 1.2, right, I have my calculator here as well, because the 1.2, we had to find a way to find that money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So 395 was a line of credit that he was maxed out. So let's call, just to make life easier, call 400,000, right?
Yeah.
So 400,000 line of credit. Now I need to find another 800,000.
Yeah.
And that's when the creativity also helped us, because we then put a second mortgage for 400,000, okay, at 5%. And now we are left with 400,000. Well, this 400,000 became a unpaid equity at 0% interest.
Yeah.
And to be paid as a balloon payment at the end of the completion, which is 2026.
All right. So let's stop there. So for you folks listening, an agreement for sale, or AFS as we like to abbreviate it, an AFS is seller financing. So Sandro wants to buy this property, and the seller has to be his bank. So the seller is going to lend to Sandro a big loan that is composed of an amount equal to his mortgage of 1.3, his line of credit of 400,
Yes.
his new second mortgage of another 400.
Yes.
So now we're up to what, 2.1?
Yes.
And then he is carrying a loan. Another part of the loan is 400,000.
Correct.
Total 2.5.
Yes.
Total 2.5. So one really exciting thing in there is that the component that's a second mortgage of 200,000. I mean, you have to talk to a lender who's willing to lend, and of course they're saying to themselves, what is the value of the property? So they must have agreed that the value was in and around 2.5 million, not 1.6.
Well, but then because of the law that was coming along and have been following with the Bill 23, that's the provincial legislation, plus the unfinished unit that would bring an extra 3,500 a month in rent, that was already right there, 3.2 valuation.
Right up there.
So for the lender, that was like a no-brainer because the equity was built in. And it's in the glebe, right? Like a sought-after neighborhood.
Lovely neighborhood in Ottawa.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is, I mean, folks, you know, when you go into a deal, it's probably not immediately obvious that changing legislation is going to allow a suite to become a legal suite and produce another nice, clean $3,500 a month. So this is just such a wonderful collection of facts. So the seller's got trouble. He really needs to get out. He's being beaten up by the wolves who want to pay him nothing. And in the end, you buy a property that's now positive cash flow.
Yes.
That's worth $3.2 million. So you've picked up $700,000 worth of equity from when you kind of started out and from what the seller wants.
Yes.
And how many of your own dollars do you have in here, Sandro?
Zero. Like we didn't put any money on it. Like zero.
Big zero.
$0. Yes.
Big zero. So anybody who's listening, if you don't think that this was a good deal for Sandro and that the agreement for sale technique is something you should learn about, then I don't know what to tell you.
Now, this is something that is very curious, very interesting, because keep in mind that I had to get the agent on board.
Yes.
So when you do the agreement for sale and the completion of the contract is 2026, for example, so legally that's when, or technically, that's when the agent would be paid, when we actually do the closing.
Yes.
So that's when the conversations, they come along, because everybody has to take a risk, right? It's a win-win scenario for everyone.
Yeah.
The seller's concern was, well, what if you take possession of the property and then you destroy my property? Well, good point. Sure. And the agent, well, why I'm going to pitch this deal to my seller when I'm going to get paid? I'm not going to wait for years to get paid. So then Babette helped us to write a contract that then this agent now is coming as a consultant, and then he can charge consulting fees and get paid, right? And then people asked me, but Sandro, when the completion happens, what if something happened you cannot close? So, well, that's the risk that I'm willing to take to pay the $130,000 to the agent for his commissions, because I believe in this process, right? So I'm taking a risk. Everybody's taking a risk here. Yeah. And then once you clearly show the strategy and the exit strategies and is in the best interest of everyone, that is much easier to get people on board and understand the strategy and why not. And I even got paid as well. So on top of the equity that I'm getting, I also charged a acquisition fee for structuring the deal and getting the deal together, right? So I ended up even getting paid from the initial money that it took from the second mortgage.
Such a win-win scenario for everybody, for the seller, for you, for the agent, for the expansion of the mind that putting together this kind of a deal does. I mean, think how anybody who's touched this transaction has had their understanding of what you can do expanded. And I guarantee you, everybody's going, wow, where else can we do this? I guarantee. Now, so now you guys are in control of the property. Is
Yes.
the fourth suite in the basement now finished and operating? Or are you
No,
still?
so we are in the process right now of being finished. So it's going live on April 1st.
Oh, good.
And we already are like people, they already want to rent. It's
Sure.
like, it's a hot spot, right?
Yeah.
So already getting the applications. Now, it's a positive cash flow, but I'm servicing out this debt. And then somebody asked me another day, well, why are you going to buy a property like that? You're not going to put any money in your pockets. Like, are you kidding me? I just created 700,000 out of thin air here. What are you
Yes.
talking about?
Did okay on that.
Right?
So, and folks, every deal, these deals aren't, falling off the trees, but if you understand what the strategy is, something will come by you and you'll go, aha, I know what to do here. Just like
Yes.
Sandro did when he heard about this. So you had another one that was happening right around the same time. Tell us
Yes.
about deal number 2.
Deal number 2. So the purchase price was different. Now the purchase price, this one was 2.7, but we literally emulated the very first deal, and we pitched the very same way to the other seller. And then, of course, using now anchoring. Well, that seller, who is a contractor and is known in the region, he just did. You can talk to him, call his lawyers. Then the second seller talked to his lawyers, like, yeah, this is actually a viable, like, he has 2 options: or lose a lot of money, or lose no money, actually make money. And that's when it becomes a no-brainer, right? Once, what I find interesting that when, because now when is the time to pitch the agreement for sale, right? That's especially in the multifamily space. So I try not to come up right off the bat as the strategy, but I keep that as like the last strategy, right? Okay, guys, you know what? This is not going to happen, but what if we try to be creative here? Would it be open if you create a win-win scenario to everyone? Well, I'm listening. So at this point, we exhausted other possibilities. At this point, you already have a relationship. People know you and people trust you. So it's much easier to have a conversation other than come out of the bat. Hey,
Yeah.
open to sellers financing. And I have to go, oh, this guy is sketchy.
Yeah.
So I tried to get the angle, right? So the second seller, we tried, okay, let's try finance with the bank with a low interest rate. It's not happening. Let's try to see if we can do VTB. Well, not happening, because then we need a massive down payment. So we go through the strategies, and then once the deal's almost, like, we take out, there's a closing technique that I use that's very typical in sales. Okay, you're closing the bag. Okay, guys, well, too bad, I gotta leave. And then almost at the door, I had an idea here. What if? And then, okay, yeah, okay, let's talk about, go back to the table and then start talking about the strategy. And that's when we got the lawyers involved, because for some reason, the lawyer almost killed the deal, right? Because like, no, this is not possible. This is crazy. No, you can't do that. So having the agent and the seller understanding, willing to work with a lawyer that also understands, is key. Because now it's like, who is this guy? Who's this Brazilian guy that doesn't even play soccer? You know what I mean? Like, there's the stigma. But
Must be crazy.
no, but one thing that I find interesting, because often people use the stigma and the stereotype as an excuse.
Sure.
And it's like, guys, there's no excuse. Like, yes, I have a strong accent. Yes, I do. Yes, I am, like, I'm a man of color and all things. This can go to the head. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. If it's a deal that is honest and makes sense and is a win-win scenario, people are not even thinking about that. It's literally looking at you as a problem solver. So become a problem solver, and you win the hearts of a lot of people that are in trouble right now.
No, that is so true, and we pound on that in our focus workshops, that being a problem solver, being genuinely interested in the person across the table from you, genuinely trying to help with with an open heart. Still, you're looking to make a business deal that's good for you. It's supposed to be win-win, but if you don't try and jam the transaction down their throat, first words out of your mouth, if you find out what their story is, if like as you said at the beginning, and so how is your grandmother? Is she well? Like, I personally, I love talking to people when they come to see me in my office and they're signing up a transaction. I never start with, okay, let's look at the numbers. I go, so you're moving to a newer house. Tell me about your old house and why did you decide to move? Well, we spend time talking about that, and I am genuinely interested in why they're doing what they're doing. And when we finish with that conversation, the paperwork, which sometimes gives people a lot of it's concerning for them. They don't do it very often. They're edgy about it. It's so much smoother. So genuine concern for people, being a problem solver, remembering it's a relational situation, creating trust. And then I have to say this, Sandro, a healthy dollop of successful HVAC salesman. That's you.
Yes.
Doesn't hurt. Doesn't hurt.
And it's interesting, right? I mean, man, I'm so blessed and I'm so grateful. Like again, joining Alfonso, and within 8 months I became a coach. So that's record time. People like, oh, what did you do? Well, I'm taking action. I'm not just sitting here waiting for the deals to fall in my lap and oh, this is not gonna work and all of this. No, no, no. I'm willing to put the work to do whatever it takes, right? To make it happen. I remember when I was there in Edmonton with you guys, a few people said, "Oh, from Ontario, yeah, I'm not going to be able to do that there," and I love that. When people come to me and say that I'm not going to do something, that's how I grew up. Like challenging the statistics, challenging the status quo, and using the tools you have to prove people wrong and make money.
No, that's true. That's something that motivates you, is the challenge. The part about taking action and doing whatever it takes, that is key to success, no matter what you're doing. In a room full of people learning something, I mean, the information that they're getting is the same, but the people who will take the information and take firm action and do what it takes are the ones who will be successful. And everybody had the same set of tools, but not everybody is successful. But I want to hear about the numbers on the second deal. So just, can you give us kind of the run through, same ways you did on the first
Yes. One? So the second deal, the exactly same structure.
Yeah.
The only difference that this one, now we had to bring an investor with 200,000. That was the difference, right? So the first deal was 2.5, the second deal was 2.7. Right. So for that difference of 200,000, they brought an investor in exchange for equity, but the structure was exactly the same. Even leaving the 400,000 as a unpaid equity that is due on completion at 0% interest, and then it's a balloon payment at the end. Yeah, right.
Gotcha.
So same strategy. And the deal that I closed on Friday, there was a single family home. So I've been watching Realtor.ca because people are like, why are you finding the deals? And there's so many ways. But I keep looking to Realtor.ca, and this property near to my house was there, and I noticed that they came in and out of the market for 6 months, and then it started like high, and the price kept dropping and dropping and dropping. And then finally, last week, they made a post, and on the Facebook groups and everywhere, now fire sale, must go. It's like, well, they are desperate. So I called the agent, who I also have a relationship. Now, a tip for everyone that is listening: when you see a property for sale, call the agent, build the relationship, go to meet them in person. And I tried that. Hey, this deal didn't work out, but let's keep the communication going. We might find an opportunity to work together. So anyways, I called her. Hey, Sandro here, the Mr. Bowtie guy. Oh, I remember you. So, wow, I saw this property that I have for sale. What's the story here? It's like, oh, darling, they bought another property and it's closing in 15 days and they don't have the money and they're going to be sued. It's like, well, I think I can help. And that's how the conversation started again. So the property I bought for 500. Their mortgage is 400. So they have a mortgage of 400 at 1.95% interest.
Oh, nice.
For 40 months.
Nice.
And then they say, well, but we need 100,000 to close the other house. Like, no, we don't need 100,000 because you got to pay the agent. You got to pay closing costs. So we did a quick math. It's like you actually need in your hands to close out the property 55,000. No, but I still have the difference. It's like, and that's when you bring the creativity and leverage. And I mean, I'm not afraid of leveraging line of credit and credit cards because the
Sure.
property has equity. So I can always come back in a few months down the road and put a line of credit to the lender
Mhm.
on the property to clear the line of credit that I leverage to give them the money to close the other property. So
Sure.
then now they have the problem out of their hands and we create a win-win scenario again, right?
So 400. So the agreement for sale of on a purchase price of 500,000 is
Yes,
made up of their existing mortgage of 400.
yes.
And then did you actually give them 100 or did you just give them the 55?
So I gave the 55
55. Okay.
and I left the difference, so the 45 as a unpaid equity that we're gonna do it in 4 months.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
now I'm gonna put like we are gonna work to put a second suite in the basement.
Mhm.
Then the value goes up, then I just go refinance and then I take that money and then I pay them out.
Wow.
Right. So
So this is a property that it's okay to put a legal secondary suite in the basement?
yes,
Okay.
yes,
So you got to do
yes,
that.
absolutely.
So this is basically 10% down. So you had to put up some money. 55,000 is basically 10% of the $500,000 purchase price. So
Yes.
another home run.
Yes. Now, technically, I didn't put any money. Like technically, but
No,
how
yes,
come? How come? Because now I'm leveraging my business line of credit. So I'm
yeah,
leveraging a credit to
sure,
pay them out.
yeah.
And then with the refinance, then so from my own pocket, I'm again like no money down
No
from my
money out of your
pocket
pocket, right?
because I'm
No,
leveraging
and
credit.
it's where lines of credit can be very useful if properly used. So
Yes.
so looking forward, do you remember what the price of the house was before they got it down to the fire sale price? I mean, they had
Oh
it
yes. So they first listed the property. So first listing was 679.
679. Wow.
Yes.
And then dropped it
And then
in
it
the
keeps
end.
dropping and
Drop,
dropping and dropping and dropping. And then they
dropping.
listed for 539, must go, and then I negotiated down to five.
Yeah.
And so again, another home run for
Another home run.
absolutely.
And
Yes.
so once you, I mean, the market will come back. And so
Yes.
the gap between 500 and 679, there's a number, it'll get to a number somewhere above 500. And
Yes.
when you put the secondary suite in, what will that do to the value of the property?
Well, I'm being extremely conservative in my numbers. So I'm using the same number. So let's say 679. So let's make life easier. 680.
Okay.
So between 680, if I do 80% lend to value, is enough money to service the debt and
Mhm.
pay them out, right? So I mean, it'll be worth more, but worst case scenario
Yeah.
will be the market value of as a single family home, which is more, but I've just been conservative in my
So,
analysis.
and what was when do you have to pay them out?
So we made a commitment to pay the difference in 4 months
4 months. Okay.
or the completion of the project.
Okay.
Because the contractor that we are working with, he said, no, I can get this done in 2 months. It's already framed. I can
Mhm.
do it in 2 months, but knowing how things are, it's like,
Yes.
well, we are saying 4 months, but if it doesn't finish, that's not my fault. We just do an extension. And at
Okay.
this point, they're going to be at their house. And
Yeah.
so I'm really solving a big problem for them.
Yeah.
These guys are not going to be sued. So now I could
Yeah.
totally set up in a way that they actually would get no money back, but I really like the idea of going to bed at night, making sure that I'm creating a scenario, not taking advantage of their situation, because I totally could,
Yeah.
right? But like, why? So it's a scenario that they feel they're winning, I feel that I'm winning, and the agent is happy that I came with a solution that's like, oh my goodness, you're so nice. Like, wow, I'm not a charity. I'm this to make
No.
money, but
I
doing things that right by people just like goes a long way, right?
I mean, yes, and we teach and truly believe that you don't take advantage of people. You don't take advantage. You try and turn it into a win-win. This is a business that we're all in, so it has to be a situation that works for you. and you try as best you can to make it a situation that works for them. That makes it win-win, and you don't beat people up for every penny.
Oh my goodness.
Now, I mean, that speaking like that and acting like that and doing business like that is more than just paying, lip service to a golden rule that you should be a nice person. It has effect, and I'm pretty sure you've experienced this. It has effect way beyond the transaction that you're working on, because Sandro, the bow tie guy, will be spoken about by who? By the seller, who is desperate, going to lose his brand new house. If he couldn't close on his brand new house because he couldn't sell his other house, that's a desperate situation. Everything he's worked for and his family's worked for is gone. So he loves Sandro, the bow tie guy. The agent who met you before, and good for you for establishing the relationship and being able to go back, and she remembers you. Again, it's that relational situation where you're already there. You're already a person that they know, an entity that they understand. They're over their immediate suspicion.
Yes.
And they're ready to listen to you. So now you've got the seller on your side and the agent on your side. And anytime anybody talks about a problem, guess what they're going to go?
They're going to call me. And this is already happening because, as I'm posting, I'm making videos, and I'm talking about the agreement for sale and why not. And I'm getting messages. Sandro, can you take a look into this? Because you're the first person that came to mind. So yes, I want people to see me as a problem solver, right? Yeah. To try to find a solution, try to find an edge that most people would ignore. So then, of course, a lot of reading, a lot of studying and dedication, and keep doing. So somebody asked me another day, so Sandro, when is enough? I said, well, it was enough a long time ago. I got to Canada with $4,000 in my pocket. Yeah. So, right, it was a win. And it's interesting because now is all about the purpose. You say, yeah, I want to make money because I'm not a charity.
Of course.
But before the money is the relationship, is the willingness to really make a difference in people's lives. And then the money is just a consequence, it's a tool, right? That's what motivates me.
Well, you've learned, and people need to hear this, that if you make a difference in someone's life, and if you're truly playing for win-win, the money follows along. It's yes. Just you don't have to worry about the money. The money just is a natural part of what you're doing, and so instead of focusing on money and numbers, and you focus on getting a result, focus on helping, focus on a relationship, and the money just trundles along behind and attaches to you sooner or later. So
I absolutely.
Now Donna is telling me, Donna, the questions?
I've got a couple of questions.
We have a couple of questions here, Sandro. So let's get Donna to pop those up so I can see them. And Cheryl Holmstrom says, is there land transfer tax here? Does AFS trigger it? So, Sandro, what's the answer?
That's a very good question. Absolutely, yes. However, you have to be smart. And again, there are ways that you can do a proper way. So, for example, if the seller goes to his bank and says, hey, I'm doing an agreement for sale, and so call this mortgage, and everybody's in trouble, right? Also, the registry, the Office of Registration, they also want their money. So we are not going to pay any land transfer taxes until the deal is actually done. So 4 years from now, for example. So then what do? I learned from Barry that you go in a different bank institution, you open a joint account between the seller and myself. So the seller sees the money coming in, I see the money going out, and then pays the mortgage at the institution where the mortgage is being held. So then I present to the bank with a letter saying, I am the property manager now, right? So I am just using the tools I have. And then the land transfer taxes you paid 4 years from now, when is the completion of the contract. Am I correct?
Well, for that question and that answer, I rely on my Ontario colleagues, on Babette and the other Ontario lawyers that are now helping with agreements for sale. They have to give Ontario clients advice on how that fits, and paying it at the end makes sense from my Alberta perspective because nothing has transferred yet. It's a transfer tax, and it hasn't transferred. So another question, Sylvie.
Yes,
So do you do title research as well?
yes,
And to what
yes.
avail? How will this info help in the type of deals you've done? So, Sandro, tell.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's when having a lawyer that understands, because you don't want to get into like to buy somebody else's problems. There's two way of seeing. Some people they say if you're buying somebody else's problems, they gotta pay. Okay, what if I get the problem and I bring a solution that then therefore is not a problem anymore? In one of my personal due diligence and non-negotiables in making sure that all that the property carries is what the seller already disclosed, right? Because you don't want any surprises. So yes, we do proper title search for sure. Now we also use a mechanism, and we did in those deals. That is the power of attorney, because afterwards the seller can do. I mean, if you don't have the proper documentation to protect you, the seller can come and put on the mortgage or negotiate somebody else, and then we use the legal tools to protect ourselves as well.
Yeah. Yeah, when you've obtained an interest in a property by way of agreement for sale, every province has the ability for you as buyer to protect yourself. Different techniques, different names for how you do it, but in each province there is a way to protect your interest as a buyer so that the seller can't go and remortgage or do something. So you have to find out how it's done in your own province. All right. Question: what licenses are required for being a property manager? Do you require a realtor's license? That, again, is a provincially legislated thing. In Alberta, to be a property manager, you have to have a realtor's license and then do a kind of a subspecialty in being a property manager. I'm not aware of how it works in
Yeah.
other
So
provinces.
here in Ontario is not regulated, but so any property I own, like I have properties in New Brunswick, in Ontario, and in Saskatchewan. I never ever tell the tenants that I'm the owner. I always come in, hey, I'm just working for the property management company, because I don't want them to bring the issues. So more like a positioning. I do own a property management company. Yeah, so here in Ontario, you don't need license for it. And it's just a positioning because the tenants they
Yeah.
don't know who I am.
Yeah, I do that too in some of my properties. I'm just the old guy cutting the lawn. I never say I'm the owner. All right, next question. What? No, that's not it. Hi, Sandro. Do you mind sharing what your exit strategy is for these properties you recently required? Is it to sell once the mortgage term is complete?
Yeah, so property number 1 and 2, so the one in the glebe. As soon as the fourth unit is completed, we are going to list because now it's illegal for plex. The property number 2, that's a buy and hold, and this property number 3, my exit is also not putting a second unit on it. We're going to rent for the time being, and then we're going to exit once the mortgage is due. Now, it's a very good question because the property number 1, even though that the mortgage is due in 4 years, but in our negotiation with the seller, we literally put us at the terms that we either wait for the completion or we sell before if we see fit, right? And I want to cash the equity before so I can keep moving to other deals.
Yeah. And for that one, you're probably going to be fortunate if you pay out before his term is up, because his interest rate is low and interest rates are high. You'll have a very small penalty to pay, probably 3 months interest. So it won't be too
Yes.
bad, really.
Yes.
All right, we got maybe time for another question before we get going. Antonio, not surprised you're asking this kind of a question, Antonio, smart guy that you are. So Antonio is playing the devil's advocate. Biggest reluctance with agreements for sale is the assumption that property prices in Ontario will keep rising over the next 5 years. How do we manage this?
Well, that's a very good question. And we played that scenario as well with the property number 1, because the first one that we did, right? Keep in mind, I am paying right now 3.3 interest rates. What if the interest rates like triple? Well, where the property is located, the rents are also going up. So I just need to wait, like instead of exiting, so let's say 4 years, I cannot exit because now the interest rates, they are either redonkulous or the property value. But keep in mind that I'm still paying down the mortgage, and is also a multifamily, which means that I can force appreciation by raising rents, because now it's the cap rate, the component that will give the valuation of the property.
Yeah.
So if I decided to keep this property for the long run, even if the price keep rising, but the rents are also rising and the mortgage is being paid down, so I just do a refinance to take enough equity to make sure that that debt is always being serviced. So then that doesn't, that's not going to be a challenge.
All right. So a little sidebar on Antonio's comment. We've always believed, Don and I have always believed, I know the Real Estate Investment Network's taught, and not sure what your position is on this, Sandro, that when you invest in a property, the property has to work for the numbers that are in place right now.
Yes.
Yes, we try and buy where we think properties are going to appreciate. You can look at statistics and make your own determination of whether you think properties will appreciate, but you can't go into an investment where the only way it's going to work is if prices rise over the next years. The equity appreciation is always a bonus. You got to buy a property that works now. So that's another aspect to Antonio's question. Now, folks, we just want to remind you that we are coming to Ontario. Maybe I shouldn't, Sandro. If I come to Ontario and teach all these other people how to do agreements for sale, maybe that's going to, I don't know, take all the deals away from you.
Oh my goodness, that would be amazing, because more people are educated, more people understand how to do it, more opportunities come. Because guess what? I come in and talk to a seller, and again, I try to be likable. It's not everybody's going to like me. Some people hate me, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But then comes somebody else that understands, like, oh, the multi guy came here to talk about this is actually a real thing, and now you do it. He's going to talk to his friends. So then I come to the neighbor, I already heard. So I'm still winning.
It's there. We come from an attitude of abundance, not scarcity.
Yeah.
There's enough going around for everybody. And so April 1st, we're coming to Toronto. Donna has probably put details in the chat here about what's going on. It's a full day event.
Sandro will be there.
Sandro will be there. Yes. If you have not met Sandro in person, he'll be there helping us recap some of the things he's talked about today, probably in more detail, because we'll have a whole day to do it. So, folks, it's going to be an amazing event. We don't get to Ontario that often. It's been 3.5 years since we've been there before. So, Sandro, thank you very much for coming on. This hour has passed by so quickly.
My honor, Barry, and thank you so much. And just one last thing, if anybody want to follow me in social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, /Sandro Canada, you're going to find me. Let's connect. And yes. I hope to see you guys. Like, honestly, this, like, I cannot stress this enough, how important it is for people to understand the value that are bringing here, right? Because again, if you need coaching, I can do coaching, like I'm a coach. But get education, and then they are giving you the implementation, and then I help you with coaching. So that's a good deal, isn't it?
It's a great deal. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening tonight. Do show up in Toronto on April 1st. Meet Sandro in person. Don and I will be there with the Focus team. It's going to be great. And on that note, good night, everybody.
Be blessed by the best. Welcome to the top.